Hello, Howard University. Thank you for having me when I can't travel. While this session is about artificial intelligence, we first need to discuss this concept called augmentation. So, what is augmentation? It's understanding artificial intelligence as a cognitive partner. In education settings and in life, we're often comfortable with another human being our cognitive partner. That is, they extend our thoughts and our ideas through dialogue, as well as adding in new information. This is when another human is augmenting us. Specifically when it comes to computers, Andy Clark said that augmentation is about being a cyborg. That is, that our cognition is spread across the brain as well as non-biological circuitry. Charles Friedman said this more simply when he stated that a human and a computer is better than a human alone. This is only true when the computer offers something the human doesn't already know, doesn't do as fast as a computer, or the human can now do higher order activities because the computer is doing the basics. Some augmentation examples from our everyday lives include calculators that compute math problems so we don't need to do all the steps. Cell phones store phone numbers so we remember contacts by name. And with apologies to purists in the audience, coffee machines measure water and coffee so humans can focus on other breakfast tasks. And now, it's your turn. What is one augmentation in your own life? Take 20 seconds to write it down before we continue. Let's come back together as a group and now discuss augmentation in medical education. There are many examples of augmentation in the clinical space that we teach in the medical education space. For example, stethoscopes have augmented the ability to hear the heart. Microscopes have augmented our ability to see detail as well as microorganisms. And ultrasound has also augmented our ability to see. The key point here is that each of these technologies augmented clinicians' ways of seeing and knowing. This is really similar to what Friedman said about a human and a computer together being better than a human alone. Let's take a moment to pause and ask, how did clinical care and training our learners change because of these types of augmentation? Please take a few seconds to note one of the augmentation examples given and how this changed clinical care or training our learners. Let's come back together to debrief and apply. Regardless of the specific augmentation example you worked with, many of your answers at a generic level will have noted that augmentation sparked a change in our processes, a change in the tools we use in education, and a change between the relationship of the patient, the learner, and the clinician. But by extension, there are times that we allow augmentation in the clinical space, but we fail to authentically allow augmentation within our medical education spaces. For example, stethoscopes have been around for a long time, so they have become a normalized part of what we allow in the clinical setting, as well as in the Objective Structured Clinical Exam, or OSCE. A different example is that in a clinical setting, a learner may be encouraged to use a computer or a mobile app to look up a clinical fact or drug dosage. Yet, in the medical education setting, particularly in assessments, we strip learners of such augmentation. Some may argue that looking something up on an app or a computer is formative in a clinical learning experience, such as your day-to-day learning in a clerkship rotation. Whereas when one gets to the summative exam at the end of the rotation in the education environment, you need to have that knowledge in your head in order to apply it on the exam. But the answer is contextual. That is, there are times in the clinical environment, such as running a code, that the information needs to be summative. You have to have it in your head, and looking it up on an app may not suffice. Whereas in the education environment, you might be learning ACLS training, and therefore looking something up on an app is legitimate. But what about when augmentation is purposely done so that the clinician has a cognitive partner to support accurate performance in the clinical setting? One example is a mobile app physicians can download when they travel by plane. In case they need to take care of a passenger, they can consult the app. And what about our previous example? Wouldn't it be better for residents and attendings who don't often run codes to have an app to consult that they could be better in the moment when called upon to run a code team? And lastly, what about drug pumps? This is an example of augmentation to make sure that drug dosages are accurate in the clinical context. I bring these examples and their complexity to you as you consider that augmentation is really about having a cognitive partner in medical education. But where is that cognitive partner authentic, and where is it disruptive to what we want our learners to be in the clinical care system? And now it's your turn to let these concepts spark ideas, dialogue, and potential answers. Please find a group of 3 to 4 peers and answer question 1. We'll convene again in a few minutes to debrief.